things have got momentum, guys. I mean, we packed them full, so this is a great event. Thank you to each one of you for coming out and showing your support for our candidates that are seeking to represent you. Also, thank you to all of our candidates that are here and the ones that are actually coming. Donna Smalley is on her way, Jessica Barker's on her way, and Cara is actually on her way, but her campaign manager is going to sit in for her just for a few moments until she gets here. So, this is so far what we have. This is our time to rise up and set the precedent in Alabama. We can no longer sit idle and allow things to remain the same. Our democracy is in jeopardy. Make no mistake about it, this November when we go to the polls, that is, what are we deciding? We're not deciding Democrat or Republican, not left or right. In this election, and every election, it's about who will have the power to shape our children for the next 4, 8, or longer years of their lives. In this election, we cannot sit back and hope that everything works out for the best. We cannot afford to be tired, frustrated, or cynical. Hear me, between now and November, we need to do what we did 8 years ago, even 4 years ago. We need to knock on every door. We need to get out every vote, and we need to pour our hearts into this election like never before and get our Democrats elected. That's what it's going to take. But it also takes each and every one of you knocking these doors, going and telling people to vote, most importantly, giving them your money, because that's what it takes to win elections. But on November the 6th, 2018, we need to turn Alabama blue and elect these Democratic candidates from top to bottom, walk out all the way down to ensure our democracy stays. That is in jeopardy. Thank you, guys. I'm going to turn it over to Casey Carpenter. She's going to lead us in the Pledge of Allegiance.
To the flag of the United States of America, and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
The Limestone County Democratic Executive Committee. So as far as our format tonight, Butler Kane is our moderator. He's a professor at UNA.
As of right now.
In the journalism department. And Butler's going to be asking questions to the candidates for the first 45 minutes or so, and then, or hour or so, and then we're going to have a few minutes after that for the audience to ask questions directly, and then to interact with the candidates. They're going to be here for a while. So with that, let me go ahead and turn it over to Butler.
Thank you. I appreciate it. Thank you. Yeah, let's see if we can get this on so it'll stay in there. Hey, how's that?
Great.
All right. If you all don't mind, I'll just sit down and explain a little bit to you all, and it'll help. I'll kind of reiterate one more time for you all up here on the panel. What we're going to do is we're going to try to be as orderly and as equitable as possible. So we'll each start out. The candidates will have about, we were talking about a couple of different numbers, but considering we're starting a little late, I think we'll start off with a 2-minute opening statement for you all, if that's okay. And then we'll, as we ask the questions, we'll do about 90 seconds on those, just to kind of keep things moving. That ought to give us about 8, 9 questions before we need to kind of wrap up, transition into some other stuff. I will be keeping tabs on this. I don't think I'll need it too much, but it's really not to tell you to be quiet. It's just to keep things moving. And because I left my work computer at home, I have some fantastic looking handwritten signs. This is when you have 30 seconds left. I'll just try to sort of just be discreet and just do this over there. And then I'll give you the wrap up sign. Wrap up is a lot nicer than, you know, other potential phrases. So, and also, so everybody gets a fair shot at starting first. I'm going to just kind of go down the row, and everybody will get an opportunity to answer first on a particular question, just so everybody gets a shot at that. And so if everybody's ready to go, we'll go ahead and get started. And Heather, we'll just start with you down on the other end. If you wouldn't mind taking a couple of minutes, up to a couple of minutes if you like, and just tell us who you are and why you're campaigning.
Yeah, sure. Thank you so much. I feel very alone down here. Thank you, Mike, for my side of the room with me. So I'm Heather Milam, and I intend to be your next Secretary of State. I hear that fairly often around the state. So I am running for Secretary of State because I believe in the integrity of your vote. We are focused on the wrong problem when we are pitching the voter ID law. We need to be focusing on the 75% of the voices that were not heard at the primary ballots June 5th. Only 25% of the people voted. The real problem is those 75% of our population whose voices were not heard, nor are they represented in Montgomery. We need automatic voter registration. We need early voting. I was speaking to the AFL-CIO last week, and how many of those individuals are working 12-hour shifts? And everyone in this room has struggled to get to the precinct on a Tuesday to vote. We need to fix that. Number two, we need to strengthen our voter files. Alabama was one of 21 states whose files were either hacked or compromised in 2016 leading up to the November general election. They're not stopping, folks. They're still coming after those files actively. My opponent was in Russia in October of 2016 observing their elections. That's not right. And that's a little questionable. Finally, and I think all of us will, thank you, agree on this, transparency. Every Democrat in this room is committed to transparency, and we are asking you, the voter, to hold us accountable. Look at who's giving us money. Look at what we're spending that money on. Hold us accountable. Hire us to do these jobs that we are applying for, because we are the government, not those egos in Montgomery. So with that, I'm Heather Milam, and I'd be honored to have your support and your vote. Thank you.
And I want to welcome Jessica Fortune Barker here. For those of you that don't know, stand up. That is Jessica Fortune Barker.
Jessica, we're taking a minute to introduce ourselves. I'm Butler Kane. I'll be serving as moderator tonight. And so if you feel like you're ready to go, we'll let everybody just kind of keep coming down. If you'll take about 2 minutes for an opening statement, you can tell us who you are and why you're campaigning.
Good afternoon, everyone. I'm sorry for my tardiness. Hit that traffic on 72, that after hours traffic. My name is Jessica Fortune Barker, and I am a resident of Huntsville, Alabama, and I am the State Board of Education candidate for District 8. Now, District 8 is not in you all's district. However, I am here in support of these lovely women as we are statewide candidates, and they were going to be here tonight, and I wanted to show unity. As a Democratic ticket, we all travel together. So because they were here, I said, I'm going to be there too. Yes. Blue wave, blue wave. So with that being said, I do still want to say that I will be working closely with you all State Board Rep in making sure that the vision we have in each of our districts, if we work together, we can take Alabama from number 48 in education right now and actually make Alabama competitive when it comes to education again, because that goes hand in hand with our economy. And if we all want thriving economies, which we do, we have to have a better education system. So my name is Jessica Fortune Barker, and I am the candidate. So if you have family in the District 8 area, which is Madison County, Jackson County, DeKalb County, eastern portion of Limestone County, and Etowah County, let them know you have a candidate that you want them to vote for.
Jessica, thank you. Coming up next is Rebecca Swinney, who is representing Cara McClure tonight, so far at least.
Hi, my name is Rebecca Swinney. I'm the campaign manager for Cara McClure for Alabama Public Service Commission Place 1. I'm standing in on Cara's behalf until she's able to get here with us. Cara McClure has many roles, but I became acquainted with her first as an activist. I have followed Cara for the past few years and know her as an outspoken community organizer who lends her voice to the people in the community who need to be heard the most. The poor, the workers, the marginalized, the homeless, the immigrant. I saw her as she organized the Black Mama's Bailout on Mother's Day last year, releasing incarcerated women who were sitting in jail simply because they were too poor to pay the bail. I have watched her organizing for Black Lives Matter, where she is the founder of the Birmingham chapter. I have seen her marching with the Poor People's Campaign, a moral call to fight poverty, improve our environment, and increase access to voting. Cara has a heart for justice and a passion for lifting up the needs of those who are sometimes forgotten. When there is a call for activism, Cara is the first to stand up. When it is time to mobilize and hit the streets, Cara is the first one there, boots on the ground. You may be asking, why would an activist and community organizer be qualified to hold an elected office? I am asking why we would elect people who are not those whom we see out there fighting, organizing, and advocating for the marginalized, the poor, the everyday, each and every one of us in the first place. This is what our elected officials, representatives, commissioners are supposed to be doing. They are supposed to be the voice of the people. But our current commissioners on the Alabama Public Service Commission cannot hear the voices of the people over the corporations and special interest groups who are whispering in their ears while filling up their hands with campaign contributions. They cannot stand up for the people when they are not standing on common ground. It is time to change the face of leadership in Alabama. We need leaders who look like Cara. We need leaders who look like Kari. We need leaders who look like Donna and Heather and Jessica. Cara also needs you. She needs you in order to win in November. It's time to organize. It's time to mobilize. We need volunteers in every county of Alabama. We need donations from the people who are in this fight with us. It is time to stand as one and get this done.
Kari, you're next.
I'm very clumsy and bad things can happen. Okay. Yeah. See, now I'm gonna knock all this stuff off. Yes, my name is Kari Powell. I'm running for Alabama's Public Service Commission, Place 2. I want to take a second to say something about Miranda Joseph, who couldn't be here tonight. She had another prior engagement. She is running for state auditor. She is an emerged sister of mine and everybody at this table. And she's an incredible candidate. She is extraordinarily qualified for the position of state auditor. And please support her. So my name is Kari. I'm running for Public Service Commission, and I'm running for office because I was asked to by my neighbors, by my family members, and finally by my 86-year-old very feisty grandmother, who successfully ran for office herself in the 1960s. I made a split-second decision on qualifying day because at 2 p.m. nobody had signed up. I filled out the paperwork and I raced to Montgomery with 40 minutes to spare. Cara and I met on the phone on the way back. We are in this together. We are women, we are mothers, we wear many hats, we worry, we solve problems, we care for our families, we make sure that everyone has a seat at the table. We are uniquely qualified to run for office. We are exactly what politicians should be. We have a problem in our state when utility rates are set in secret. We have a problem when powerful monopolies have not faced formal public scrutiny since 1982. We have a problem when coal ash contaminates our air, our soil, and the water we drink. We have a problem when we tax the sun. We have a problem when we refuse to welcome clean energy jobs and the economy that comes with it. The women you see here are problem solvers. It is why we run. Cara and I will use our powerful majority on this 3-person commission to ensure fair rates. We will be transparent, we will be accountable, and we will create pathways for high-paying, clean energy jobs to flourish in Alabama, and we will make sure that your voice is heard.
Thank you, everyone. Heather, we're going to start with you with our first question. And the first time we go around, we'll just kind of come down the road right here. Just a note to the audience members, remember you have received some cards that you would like to write down a question or two. I will do my best to be able to get those in as best as I'm able. Casey will be picking those up. If you will just hold it up, Casey will come around and get it from you and then bring it over to the table. So please don't be shy about writing out a question or two for us to do. And you don't have to stop at one. You can do 2 or 3 if you like. I will go ahead and start off with one that's sort of generic, just to get the ball rolling. But each of you can make it specific to the office that you're campaigning for. And so Heather, we'll start with you. You're campaigning for Secretary of State. What is 1 or 2 of the primary issues that you are running for at a statewide level that you feel need to be addressed from the Secretary of State's office?
Sure, and I think one thing that you find in common with all of us is that we recognize many of the voices just simply are not heard, nor are they represented. What I can do as Secretary of State, as I mentioned earlier, is push for policies that engage and enfranchise everyone in Alabama. Because this is what Alabama looks like. It does not look like Montgomery. So I need to continue to push for those policies that allow for more voices to be heard, like automatic voter registration, like early voting. We need to be pushing legislators to do that. Furthermore, we need my office to work for the people. If you are a business owner in here, I need for my office to be working directly with you. We need to streamline processes for you. As boring as it might sound, my website needs to be as user-friendly as possible so that someone as young as a 15-year-old who's starting a hot dog stand at the end of his street can go apply for an LLC to someone that's much bigger and coming in from out of state and can do, you know, starting a company that's got 500 people. So those are 2 things that I can do to just make the office work a little bit better for the people, but primarily my focus certainly is voter engagement and voter empowerment. Okay.
Heather, thank you. Jessica, the same question would be for you at the State Board of Education level. What's 1 or 2 of the primary reasons you're campaigning for office and you think you would be able to have some influence over in this position?
All right, that is an excellent question. First of all, I am the mother of 4 children. 3 of them are currently in Alabama's public school systems. So with that being said, I'm also a product of Alabama's public school systems. And seeing that some of the challenges that we faced 27 years ago when I started kindergarten, we're still facing right now. For instance, our education trust fund, monies that are allocated for education are being leaked out of that trust fund into other funds, the general fund, and for other things that are not itemized education, public education items. We have to make sure that we secure those monies back into the education trust fund. So that is going to be the first thing that I'm going to fight for, is to look at the budget. My background is finance and business consulting. So I'm going to look at that budget and see how can we stop those leaks, where we can have that money to go back to providing more resources in the classrooms, more supplies for the teachers, better pay for our teachers, incentives and bonuses for our teachers. So that is what I'm very passionate about, is saving that money and putting that money back to use for our children. Thank you.
Jessica, thank you. Rebecca, how about for Cara and her run for Public Service Commission? I'm sure you all have had some conversations. What's one of her primary goals for winning this position?
The way that I think primarily attracted Cara to Public Service Commission is that the Public Service Commission is one of the places where she can make an almost immediate impact. We all feel the pain of those utility bills when they come in every month, and Alabama has some of the highest utility bills in the nation. We're second highest for electricity bills, and you know, and there's just no reason why, or at least we don't know the reason why, I guess. There's no transparency. The rates are set in secret, and until, you know, there's public hearings or public case hearings, then we're not going to know why it's set at certain rates and what we can do about that.
All right, Rebecca, thank you very much. Kari, the same question for you. You're running for a different place, but same organization.
So just to explain, in case anybody doesn't know, the Public Service Commission, even though it's called Place 1 and Place 2, they're both statewide. There are only 3 people on the commission. Twinkle Kavanaugh is the current president. She will stay there at least for 2 more years. So, but if Cara and I are both elected, every decision is made by a vote there. So we would outnumber her, and it would be good. So, so like Rebecca said, Cara and I have very similar platforms. That's why we're running this joint campaign together. We really want to get it all over the state, and we know that we have the best opportunity to have this majority if we're in this together. So, like Cara, I think transparency is the #1 issue that we need to face at the Public Service Commission. Most states hold formal rate cases every 3 years just to ensure that the rates are fair and to just make sure, the reason this office even exists is to make sure that these monopolies cannot rip you off. And that's how they make sure in other states, but we haven't had one of those hearings since 1982. So we need to do that again.
Kari, thank you. Jessica, I'm going to start with you for this next one, and then I'm just going to keep working our way down, and Heather, you'll get this one last, the way this one's going to work. So, yeah, so you can sit back on this one. But this question is from an audience member, and it goes to one of the reasons why we are all here tonight about getting candidates an opportunity to introduce themselves to the public. And so this question, or statement really, request, could each of you briefly tell us about your education and work history? And Jessica, we'll start with you.
Absolutely. So as I stated earlier, I am a product of District 8 school system, a graduate of J.O. Johnson High. I then went on to study briefly at UNC Charlotte, in which I took up business, finance, and consulting. And then I went on to come back to Alabama, in which I started my own business. So I've been in business for myself as an entrepreneur for over 10 years now, doing business consulting and finance management, where I contract with different entities. I've done government, private sector, and healthcare entities, as well as universities, in providing business consulting, just making sure their books are correct, making sure that their human resources department is running correctly. So I've had joy working with various people in the community over the past decade.
Jessica, thank you. And Rebecca, I don't know how much bio info you've got for Cara, but you're welcome to tell us anything you might know, and you're even welcome to tell us a little bit about yourself and why you were working with Cara's campaign and why you believe in her.
Well, I believe in Cara because I've been following her for years as an activist. She's very inspiring. She's someone that makes you get out there and want to change the world with her. I do know enough about Cara to share a little bit. Well, I keep looking at you. Sorry, people out here. Cara has a background in network marketing and as a small business owner. I think one of the things that has made the biggest impact on Cara in her life is that Cara is someone who can definitely make a good situation or make something positive out of a good situation. She started a small business, an apartment finding service, and when she started that business, she was a homeless single mother, and she saw a need for that in her community. She's definitely someone who can look out and look at the people and say, what do these people need the most? And that's where you find your answers on how to change your state, your community, your nation, is by looking at the people who are hurting the most. That's how you find what you can do to make it just a better place in general.
Rebecca, thank you. Kari, could you tell us a little bit about your educational work history, please?
Yeah, so I grew up all over the Midwest. My dad's job changed a lot, so I grew up going to elementary schools and high schools all over the place. But I ended up going to college at Miami of Ohio, and I got a Bachelor of Fine Arts from that school. I'm a graphic designer, and I minored in business. And so after college, I got a job as an advertising director for a big real estate company in the Cleveland area. And I served as their advertising director and as a producer and director of a TV show that aired on News Channel 5. And then I moved to Chicago and served as a marketing director for another large real estate firm. And there I had a daughter. I was a single mom, and she had an oral trauma, and I fell in love with her dentist. And he's from Dothan, Alabama. So I've been here for 8 years, and in that time, I kept my job when I moved here, the job in Chicago. I kept running the marketing department there, and then I quit that to help him start a small business. He's a pediatric dentist, obviously. So we built a practice over the last 5 years, and I've managed and run that. And now it's time for me to run for office.
All right, thank you. Heather, you can wrap us up here.
All right, so, this is Greg Poss, everyone.
Donna Smalley just got here, so I want to take the time to introduce Donna Smalley. Thank you for coming. She said it was pouring down rain where she came from, so she did make it though.
Come on, Donna. Be careful of the wire. We got some issues earlier.
It's my fault.
Hey, welcome. So,
Heather, I stopped the clock for you.
thank you. I know. So I graduated from college. That's it. I grew up in Childersburg, Auburn University. I have had a career in publishing and management. I went back to get a graduate degree in public and private management. I owned a newspaper for several years, and there's no money in newspapers. I told someone just yesterday or the day before that running for office is 1,000 times easier than running a newspaper, I can tell you that. But one thing I want to point out is that every woman sitting up here, I don't know if you did, but you're one of us, and Caroline and Laura, we have all been through Emerge Alabama training. And when men are asked to run for office, they are asked one time, and they say, okay. Women have to be asked 7 times. And then we have to go through our resume and make sure that we are qualified in our own heads to run for this office. So it's important for us to be qualified for the offices that we are running for, so we don't take it lightly. And each of us put in over 70 hours of training in policy and in how to run an effective campaign and how to listen to our constituents and be the best public servants that we can be. So we can give you our resumes, and that's good. But I want you to know that when it comes to running for office, all of us took this very seriously, and we did the training to be the best that we can possibly be for all of you.
Donna, I'm going to give you, I'm Butler Kane, I'm your moderator for tonight, so welcome in. I'm going to give you an opportunity, if you would like, just to kind of start off. Everybody gave a little bit of a brief presentation about why they're running for office, and if you would like to follow up on that,
Okay.
this question that everyone was just answering was briefly tell us about your education and work history. So if you'd like, I'll let you combine both of those.
All right. I'm Donna Smalley. My name will be on the ballot as Donna Smalley. That's because I've been sworn in and had my FBI check with the bar with that name, and a lot of people don't realize why women who are in professions that do have background checks maintain that maiden name. In addition to which, you know, I'm sort of proud of my dad. So I will be on the ballot this fall. I am an attorney. I currently practice law in Jasper, Alabama. I've been there for 13 years. Why did I move to Jasper, Alabama? I don't know. I turned 50. I could have bought a Harley, but instead I moved to Jasper. You know, I had practiced law before that for 23 years in Tuscaloosa, and I also taught as an adjunct at the University of Alabama Law School and in the English department at the University of Alabama undergraduate. I taught legal writing. Prior to that, I worked for 4 years in Birmingham with State Farm Insurance, and then I had graduated from law school in 1978. So this year is my 40th year to be practicing.
All right.
It's really nice when people say, gee, you don't look old enough to have been practicing that long. But trust me, I have. I'm running for this particular position because all 9 judges on the Supreme Court are Republican. All 5 judges on the Court of Criminal Appeals are Republican. All 5 judges on the Court of Civil Appeals. That's a total of 19 appellate positions in the state of Alabama, and 100% of those positions are held by Republicans. I think that it is important for our courts to have a representation of the citizenry to the extent that you can do so with qualified, well-trained people. I was the first woman to teach trial advocacy at the University of Alabama Law School. When I graduated in 1978, there were not a whole lot of women at that point graduating. Now it's about 50-50. But there's still, even in that length of time, there have not been a lot of women that have maintained a private practice. You know, it was very difficult to balance the demands of being married, having children, running a practice, blah, blah, blah. So a lot of women would sort of go towards either positions in academia or in corporate work. And I am one of the ones that have maintained a private practice throughout that time. Not that that's any better or worse than any other lady lawyers. It's just that I've had a broad spectrum of experience, which I think makes me uniquely qualified to sit on the Supreme Court, which is definitely more experienced. So that's one of my elevator speeches, if you will. So thank you so much, and I so appreciate everybody coming, and I apologize for being late. My son told me at my fundraiser last week that he already knew what his first line was going to be at my funeral. And I said, well, Trip, you know, he said, yes, it's going to be, thanks for coming. The casket should be here in about 50 minutes. So, hey, that apple didn't fall too far from the tree.
Donna, thank you very much. Rebecca, I'm going to start with you since you're next up to take this first. And this is an audience question, and I think it's appropriate for all of our panelists tonight. Why is it important to elect women in Alabama?
Because we live here. Our representatives are not truly representing the people if we don't have diversity. That's one of the main reasons. And like Kari has said, and several, the rest of the women here, we are all uniquely qualified. I think being a mother is one thing that qualifies you definitely to run for office and to hold an elected position because we are problem solvers. We know how to get things done, and if there's, you know, a problem and it needs to be taken care of, then who's going to do it but your mother and, or other women? And I think that's about it.
Rebecca, thank you. All right.
Yes, okay, so I think it's really important for women to run because right now only 14% of our state legislature is compromised of women. And I think that has a big effect on the laws that we make, and I think that, you know, the government should accurately represent the people that they serve. It should represent the constituents. And like I said before, women wear many hats. We are constantly multitasking, and we are constantly making sure that everyone is okay. And that is my definition of a politician. You need to be making sure that everyone is okay all the time and that their voice is heard.
Kari, thank you.
The thing I want to add to that is that although women represent less than 15% of the elected government officials and only approximately 14% of the legislative branch, they represent 52% of eligible voters in Alabama. And that is the gap between eligible voters who are being represented and the actual picture of the representatives. So that lets you see pretty clearly that there is a large gap between the number of women who are eligible to vote and the number of women who serve in elected positions. So the other thing I would like to say is that there have been some very recent studies that have shown women tend to get more done when elected. Within the first 3 weeks of the elections in Virginia, 5 women were elected to the Virginia State House. Medicaid expansion was accomplished. Isn't it amazing that 5 women made that much of a significant change and added 26 million people to have health insurance within 3 weeks? That's what 5 strong women can do.
Woo, let's go.
So, yes, it is a
Donna, thank you very much. Heather, you're up next.
Yeah.
So let's say equality is not anti-anything. And if only 14% of Montgomery looks like this panel, isn't it, and I am sure you no one in this room is happy with the way the state of Alabama is currently, isn't it worth the gamble to elect some women into office? And again, we are mothers and daughters and cousins and friends, and we are running businesses, and we are taking care of aging parents, and we are teaching Sunday school, and we are taking our dogs to the vet, and we are taking our children to piano lessons, and we are couponing, and we are grocery shopping, and we are making sure that our houses are being run appropriately, and we are looking at the bills, and we are our family's accountants.
Yes.
And we are going to now be your public officers. And we know how to run our homes. We are going to run this state like we run our homes.
Yes, ma'am.
So I think it's worth the gamble.
Heather, thank you. And Jessica, you can finish us up on this one.
It's hard to go after that. I mean, a whole lot of these women made excellent points. They left me no stats or anything to throw out there. No, but women, I think innately we have been given that gift of nurturing. And at a time right now where our country is polarized in so many different facets, from the federal government all the way down, I think it is very important to have that sense of stability enter back into the decisions that are being made on every level of government right now. And I will go a step further and say Doug Jones' victory was credited to African American women. You know? Country right now is at a time where women, regardless of what race, religion, creed, or culture you are, women are saying we have a voice and we're no longer going to be okay with being suppressed. We're going to use our voice and we're going to make a difference. So I'm proud right now to be a woman running with these lovely ladies in changing the culture of our communities.
Kari, we will start with you for this round, and then we'll just come right back down the row. What has surprised you, audience question, what has surprised you the most about campaigning and being a candidate this year?
Can you have a second with me?
Yeah, sure.
I guess the most surprising thing is specifically with my message. You know, my message is I want to make sure your power bill is fair, and I want to bring better jobs, and I want to clean up our rivers and our soil and our air. And that has resonated with a lot of conservatives. So I think that would be the most surprising thing that I've encountered, that it's not a polarizing thing.
Kari, thank you. Yeah, it's okay. You can clap every time if you want. So, Heather, we'll start with you now. Come back down this list. Same question for you, please.
Well, first off, it's groups like you, because kudos to you for taking your Tuesday night to sit in a room with us with beige walls and actually participate and listen to what we have to say in front of you. So thank you. This is one of the best things that we've learned crisscrossing the state. We are meeting so many people who care so much about the state of their state. They care about their power bills, they care about their education, they care about justice, they care about their votes, and they will tell you about it. I've told Laura, my campaign manager, is that one of the things that I find so fundamental about who we are is that whether you are in Marshall County or Talladega County or Lee County or Madison County, we just want our humanity recognized and identified. And so that's why voting is so personal to me, is because it's your voice, and it's the only thing we really have in democracy. And people want to talk about it, people care about it, and I am going to fight like hell for it. So when I talk, so that is the thing that I've learned. And also, Alabama is gorgeous. And if you haven't taken a Sunday drive around, I encourage you to do that. It's so pretty. I had a beautiful drive down to Union Springs, Alabama not long ago, and I was just blown away by how gorgeous it is. So, yeah.
Heather, thank you very much. Donna, same question for you, please.
One of the things that's been very interesting and somewhat surprising to me is how distressed people, both Republicans and Democrats, are at the level of corruption in our state government. That actually ranked right behind health care as the issue that most of the citizenry was interested in, according to the meeting we had with Walt Maddox a few weeks ago. And, you know, my position on that is, and I've said this to some of my dear friends who are Republicans, and I'm going to tell you, there are some good people who have been Republicans for a long time. They thought that they were conservative, and in what that word means, you know, that they were going to be good stewards with their money. That's what they thought that meant. And it hasn't turned out to be what that meant. And they're disgusted with some of the things that have gone on. You know, one definition of insanity is to keep doing the same thing over and over and expect different results. And, you know, in the last few years, the Republicans have had a governor run out of the state house in disgrace, a Speaker of the House convicted criminally, and a Chief Justice removed not once, but twice. And then the third Republican Chief Justice defeated by another Republican on her court who ran against her in the primary. I mean, good grief, they can run a campaign apparently, but not a government. Let's give the Democrats a break.
Jessica.
Can you repeat that question?
Yeah, it was about that time, isn't it? What has surprised you the most about campaigning and being a candidate this year?
I think what has surprised me most is actually the misinformation that's in the communities. And when I say that our community doesn't understand the importance of voting, they are misinformed about the different seats. For instance, a lot of people, I usually get the question when I say I'm running for State Board of Education, well, are you a teacher? Well, they don't even know you can't be a teacher and serve in this capacity. You have to have been removed from your office for at least 5 years as an educator before you can even run for this office. So I think that there is a lot of misinformation out there, and I'm thankful for like Greg Poss and Mike Smith and the ALCD5 for, you know, having town halls like this where we have a chance as candidates to inform our constituents on exactly what our seats are and what we will be doing for the community.
Rebecca, you can take us home on this one.
What was it again?
It's about the most kind of surprising about campaigning or being a candidate or working for a candidate.
Okay, I don't know the answer for Cara, but I know the answer that I thought of was how many people have no idea what the Public Service Commission does, which is 99% of people apparently. So it truly is one of the most important offices that no one has ever heard of. So now that y'all know, please share your friends and educate and let them know what an important office it is and why it's important to vote for Cara and for Kari and, you know, help get the change that Alabama needs.
Rebecca, thank you. Okay, time for a new question, and Heather, you'll start us off again. And this one is specific to the position that you're running for, and I'll modify it a little bit for everyone else, just because we don't all get a perfect fit on all of our positions that we're campaigning for. But as Secretary of State, and I'll read it as it's written, will you endorse nonviolent people who have been denied their right to vote the ability to regain their voting rights?
Yes, so last year, the mayor signed into law the definition of crimes of moral turpitude. The current Secretary of State is doing nothing about enfranchising those who've gained their right to vote. The Southern Poverty Law Center estimated anywhere from 65 to 250,000 people may have gained their right to vote, and they don't know it. And their voice is just as important as yours, and it's just as important as mine. And I also believe that once you have served your sentence to society, you have served that, your voice is relevant. Right? You deserve your voice to be heard. And so, yes, I will fight for that, and that is something I'm pushing for. I was glad to see that that law was signed into, that bill was signed into law, because I think it clarified things. The problem, though, is that we are doing nothing to actively enfranchise these individuals anymore, and I am committed to doing just that.
Donna, you'll be next, and I think for everyone else, we can modify that just a little bit. Since you're running for a statewide office, and you need people to vote for you, would you mind sharing with the audience your thoughts on voting and the ability to vote and voting rights in Alabama specific?
Well, for one thing, I want to commend Heather Milam because, you know, she just hit the nail on the head as to why we specifically need her in the Secretary of State's office, whose job it is to empower voters and to actively pursue getting people qualified to vote. Last night on public television, I actually had a cold and I got to lay on my sofa and watch TV. I can't tell you the last time I did that. This shows you how little of a life I have, that I flipped it directly to our wonderful public broadcasting system. And there was a special on a lady whose name is Virginia Foster Doerr, D-U-R-R. How many of you know who Virginia Doerr is? Well, she was a white lady who lived in Country Club Hills in Montgomery. Hers was the house where she hid out Rosa Parks after she got her out of jail. Clifford J. Doerr was the wealthy, sophisticated, aristocrat attorney from Montgomery who left not one, not two, but 3 different jobs because he disagreed with the positions of the old South and put his life literally and his family on the line to work against the poll tax, which was fully in and alive and well up through 1965 when the Voting Rights Act was passed. So the right to vote is sacred. I hope that you will remind your friends and relatives to learn about their candidates and get out and vote.
Thank you.
And I must backtrack real quick. I forgot to shout out Tom Ryan. He's my county chair for the Democratic Party. So I mentioned Michael Gray. Thank you, Tom, also for all the work that you do for us. But to get back to the importance of voting, in my community, especially as an African American, I think that there have been so many obstacles that we have had to face when it comes to having the right to vote and being suppressed when it comes to voting. Also coming up is August 26th, which is the anniversary of the 19th Amendment being passed where women had the right to vote. So in celebrating having the right to vote, I'm having to remind my friends, I'm a millennial as well, so having to remind my young friends, my African American friends, and my female friends that people fought and died for our right. Now, of course, it is a right, so you, yes, they did. So, of course, it's a right, so you have an option to exercise, to choose to exercise that right, but my thing is, don't let our heritage and the people of the past and their suffrage movements go to waste. Use that right, exercise that right.
Rebecca, if you'd like to tackle that one as well. Yes, just voting, the importance of voting in Alabama, or any concerns that you or Cara might have just as a candidate, what's on their radar?
Voting is very important to Cara. She herself has organized voting drives and voter registrations, as well as voter rehabilitations. That's what it is that they're doing. The SPLC, what Heather was talking about earlier. When I heard that Merrill was doing nothing to tell people that they could vote now, I was absolutely horrified, as Cara was as well. And so yes, it's very important, and that is something that's very close to her heart, is getting people out and getting registered and helping them get to the polls.
Rebecca, thank you. Kari.
Okay, so in about 2015, I think, I joined a group in Birmingham called Faith in Action Alabama. And they are all over the state. There's a branch here in Huntsville, right over that way. And one of the things that, we work to turn out voters and meet with legislators, talk about, we helped get the ban the box thing done. But one thing that they are starting to do is voter restoration clinics. And I'm sure that they'll be hosting some of those up in the Huntsville area, and Mobile, and Montgomery, and Birmingham. And we've already had one of those. So it's just a way to educate people on how to know if they are eligible to vote. And you know, some people are just coming and they know some people who have had felonies or whatever, and a lot of these are, you know, forgiven now and they can vote. So there are educational things going on. They might be slow to come, but they're coming.
Kari, thank you.
Can I say the mayor, not the governor? Can I say the governor or the mayor, if that's fine?
But we knew what you were talking about.
We sleep, I promise.
Hey, I pay attention to Heather, that's all.
Donna, you can hang on to that mic because you're starting this one. We're going to start this one with you. This one is specific about the state constitution, and of course a host of things come before the state Supreme Court. And this question concerns immigration and immigration policy. And the way the question is written is, how do we encourage immigration policy reform in Alabama? So what are your thoughts about immigration and immigration policy?
Believe it or not, this came up last week in Gardendale at one of our candidate forums, and I was able to remind or inform the audience that the immigration cases and issues go before immigration judges who work at the pleasure of the Department of Justice. They are a federal agency. They are not, that is not a duty that comes before any of the state judges elected in Alabama, unfortunately. So, to put it bluntly, there's really not a darn thing any of us at the local, state, or appellate levels can do about immigration, because we are not immigration judges. Those are very specific class of administrative judges. They are all hired, fired, and work at the pleasure of Jeff Sessions.
Now that we've clarified that, could we leave that question on the table just to ask, because immigration does affect all of the things that you're running for. And so Donna, would you like to touch on that?
Absolutely, and you know, the thing is that the immigrants in Alabama significantly add to our economic welfare in the state. I mean, you know, there were tomatoes rotting on Sand Mountain as a result of some of the you know, immediate removal, no tolerance policies that recently handed out from Jeff Sessions through the Immigration Enforcement Agency. So definitely we need DACA. We need to figure out some way to allow the people here to work who come, and certainly no one should have their children separated from them. And I'm going to pass the mic.
Donna, thank you. Jessica, you're going to be next on this one. Are all three of y'all sharing that? Okay. Yes. Clearly, immigration is going to be an issue that affects education in the state. And what are your thoughts on that?
So I absolutely believe that we have to look at providing for all children. Absolutely. Regardless of if they're Hispanic, Asian, Black, white, all of our children deserve to have access to an equitable, quality education. So with that being said, I would be working, and that's the pleasure of my seat, is I get to work with all the legislators and all the congressional, representatives in making sure that they fight for policies that will positively impact my students, my children in my district. So I have already been meeting with not only just the candidates, but some of our current elected officials in saying, okay, when you go and vote in regards to the immigration policies, you have to keep in mind that I have children, I want to say 29% of my district, which spans over 5 counties, is Hispanic in population of my students. So that is a pretty wide margin of children that are being affected by the policies and the decisions that they make in Montgomery. So I think they just have to keep that in mind, and I have to be the one to remind them.
Jessica, thank you. Rebecca, you're next.
Okay.
Would y'all like to answer that together?
Yeah.
Go for it.
Okay, I guess the only thing I want to say about that, because I wouldn't have any, direct impact on actual immigration policies, but I would be representing the people of Alabama, not just voters, because voters in Alabama are actually just a kind of small percentage. I will be fighting for actual, real, regular citizens or, immigrants who are not documented, who still have bills, and they're still atrocious, and they're still the second highest in the country.
All right, thank you. Heather, you get to wrap this one up. This is a significant issue for the Secretary of State's office as well.
Sure. So last night I participated in a panel discussion. Panels are everywhere across the state right now, but I was participating in a panel discussion at a church in downtown Birmingham, and Judge McPherson was there, and she is just an incredible woman. And she said, it's really interesting to me that we are trying to penalize these workers who are trying to do the best they can to provide for their families. And also, side note, no human being is illegal.
That's right.
And no human being should ever be called an alien. So how about we try with a little bit of empathy first? But she said, I find it very interesting that we are going on after these hard workers. And they are doing labor, whether it's on Sand Mountain farming, or I have a house that's being renovated right now, they are on my roof and they are doing incredible work. We are penalizing them, we're not penalizing their bosses. So, I'll leave that. It didn't have much to do with the Secretary of State's office, but,
Heather, thank you. Hey, we'll switch gears. Jessica, you get this one first this time around, and it's an education question.
All right.
So I'm trying to help you all out here. This is a question from the audience, and I'll modify it a little bit. It's concerning pre-K programming, and the idea is that our governor is touting this program, but in reality, it may not be as good as not getting as much funding as the governor may be saying that it is. And so, what kind of concerns do you have about that, and how could you make pre-K education a priority in this state?
Yes, so I wholeheartedly support universal pre-K. I would love to see a pre-K program offered in every school across the entire state. Why? Because studies show, and we all know as parents, those of us that are parents, that between birth to 5 years is when a child retains the most information. That's when they learn to walk, to talk. Most children that are bilingual or in bilingual families learn both languages before the age of 5. So that is a crucial time to make sure that we are engaging the children. So that 4 to 5-year-old would be my pre-K age. Also, if a child is reading by 3rd grade, studies show that that child's success rate is much higher than those who are not. So if we capture these children as young as possible and begin to educate them in a formal setting, I think that we will end up producing citizens that are ready to go on and take on workloads or take on the world once they graduate from early education. So universal pre-K, I'm all for it. I've been working with Representative Anthony Daniels. He is a strong advocate for that program as well, and we're going to keep the ball rolling on that.
Jessica, thank you. Rebecca and Kari, Rebecca, I'll start with you on this, even though you're both you're campaigning for a public service commissioner, you're representing Cara, who's doing that. I'm sure that as candidates, you have thoughts, or your candidate has a thought on education in general in the state. And would you like to touch on that? Has there been any discussion about that? Or y'all can tag team it if you like.
We'll tag team it. Well, this is, again, is not something that's part of my platform, but we have the #1 pre-K program in the nation, I believe.
Yes.
First class pre-K, and it's not available statewide. So just like Jessica said, we need to make the #1 pre-K program available to all of our students.
Thank you. Heather, this isn't specific to the position that you're campaigning for as well, but everybody's got an opinion on education.
Sure.
What's yours?
We need more of it. I think that this is sort of full circle to what we talked about earlier, and something that Jessica, you said, and that is that it is sad when you go around the state where people don't know what the Public Service Commission is, and when they don't understand what the Secretary of State does. But I think that there's a solution to that. Before you leave tonight, I hope all of you are going to grab yard signs. And when you put those yard signs in your yard, don't just leave them there. Actively communicate with your neighbors and your